All right. Who's first?
No, that's another big step.
No? No?
You all hear now?
I can hear it, it's just very soft. I think I can hear it.
Testing. Aha. Use the wrong word and gotta say testing. I guess I'm supposed to use the gavel. Hello, welcome everybody to our annual meeting. Good to have everybody here. Before we start the, can't you read off of that actually? Before we start the presentations from both our secretary and our treasurer, I just wanted to mention one thing that I forgot to do yesterday, and that is the bylaw vote we're closing today. We wanted to be sure people had a chance to vote on paper. Most of you hopefully voted online. But since we didn't announce that yesterday, we're going to say anybody who would like to vote on paper who has not voted online, please don't do both. If you would just, in the next 30 minutes, Bill Stein, our first vice president back there, write on a piece of paper, yes, no, take it back to him. Don't leave any DNA in the paper, trace back who you are. But anyway, give it to Bill, and we'll add those into the tally that's actually coming off the system right now. They actually are just getting online to formally close the electronic voting and collect both the votes for the bylaw and the votes for our council members. Great having everybody together. I thought yesterday was a good day. A lot of energy and a lot of excitement. I'm really pleased with how things are going. We're going to start the meeting this morning. Chris was our secretary, acting secretary. Well, no, that's right, until the end of tomorrow. She's only acting. And she will summarize the previous meetings and do her thing.
And I'm just going to sit here and read the report, because you all know what I look like, so. This is the minutes of the spring membership meeting, the joint Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and AAVSO conference on June 16th, 2019, was held in the Student Center of York University, Toronto, Canada. It was called to order by President Gordon Myers at 9:02 a.m. Bob Stevens gave a treasurer's report. As of March 31st, 2019, the AAVSO had $165,767 of cash and $12,997,500 in investments. The operating fund had $165,502 of revenues, which exceeded the budget for that time period by $86,502. Most of that increase came from unexpected charitable contributions. Expenses were in line with the budget for the period. The biggest difference in budgeted results was because the AAVSO only drew $200,000 from its endowment fund while budgeting for a $325,000 draw. We did not draw from the endowment for several months. Stella gave her director's report. She began by giving the role of those we lost last year. A moment of silence was held in their memory. Stella reflected on our mission. The key words are enable, anyone, anywhere, and participate. We provide resources in equal opportunity way to people in a wide geographical area to take an active role in variable star science. She reminded us of our non-discrimination, non-harassment, anti-bullying policy, which is available on the web. She introduced the council members and staff and gave credit to our valued volunteers. She also gave a report on the demographics of the organization. We had at that time about 1,110 members, 64% from the US. As for the observers, only 32% are from the US and 52% are visual observers. Among the AAVSO science highlights, they included our partnership with the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, follow-up project searching for Earth-like planets around nearby stars. Also, the long-term monitoring of objects of interest is an example of a continuing niche for the AAVSO. AAVSO continues to be well represented in scientific publications. Stella reminded us about JAVSO and recommended a recent editorial by editor John Kersey about citizen science. VSX is the backbone of what we do and currently hosts 500,000 objects. As we'll hear today, there's many more now. Choice course offerings continue to be developed and offered, including observing and counting sunspots. We have 27 mentors from 12 countries. Please consider being a mentor, and there are numerous manuals available in a variety of languages. Gordon summarized the work of the Strategic Planning Committee of Council and says that we've been gathering data. We've been talking to members, and we hope to revitalize the AAVSO and to answer fundamental questions of where we are headed and how we can grow and diversify our organization. A Q&A period ensued on all of these issues, and the detailed responses were recorded for later consideration by Council. This process of strategic planning will take us into 2020, so please stay tuned for updates at future meetings. Respectfully submitted, Chris Larson, Acting Secretary. I will now turn the microphone over to our Treasurer, Bob Stevens, for the Treasurer's report.
One quick announcement. Yeah, if anyone wants to vote on the bylaw, there's paper, and you come back and vote.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Everybody properly caffeinated? Okay. I'm here to report on the asteroid I was following last night. I got new data. It looks like we have found a satellite. This is a very interesting asteroid, about 7 kilometers in diameter. This satellite is maybe 250 meters. So, anything else you want to know?
Treasury report.
Treasury. You want the treasury report? Let's just have Chris read back the March report, and we'll change the numbers a little bit, because that was a fine report there. Okay, let's get into it. Let's do a deep dive into the world of debits and credits. When I interview a new staff accountant, I often ask them, what's the difference between a debit and a credit? And if the answer is anything other than the debit's the column close to the door, and the credit's the column close to the window, I know they're BSing me. So, okay, so I'm gonna show you some of those, debits and credits. This is what a small business owner might call a balance sheet. In the world for nonprofits, we call it a statement of financial position. Why? Because we like long terms. But it shows, it's a snapshot in time as to what we own and what we owe to people as of the end of our fiscal year, in this case, which is September 30th, which is magically only, what, 2-something weeks ago. Well, the numbers are good enough, they're not all reconciled. There's gonna be some subtle changes when the auditors get into it in a couple of weeks, but it's good enough for this presentation in the big picture world of cosmology. If it's within a factor of 10, it's good enough, right? Okay, so what we're showing here, and okay. We have, right now, well, 2 weeks ago, $188,000 cash in the bank. And we have $13,200,000 in our investment pool. The middle column, by the way, is the current numbers. The column on the right is just the prior year for comparative purposes, so you can kind of see what's going on. In addition, we've got something called fixed assets, think our building, a few computers and things like that, and some other assets, don't know what those are right now. And then we got, so that's all totals up to $14,600,000. We have some liabilities, about $50,000, mainly some credit card bills, some stuff like that, prepaid dues that haven't been quite allocated out yet. And then, so the difference between those two numbers, assets and liabilities, is something we now call net assets, our new terminology. We're always changing the terminology to keep you on your toes. Net assets are, of course, differences between assets and liabilities. We break those into several categories. We got those net assets that are without any donor restrictions. That's about 11 million bucks. And then we got some net assets with donor restrictions, and these are the various funds right here, biggest of which is the endowment fund, and that all totals up to our $14 million. Okay, so that's the balance sheet. Now, how do we get there? This is what a small business owner would call a profit and loss statement. Of course, we're gonna call it the statement of activities, because we don't wanna be ambiguous here. Now, so this is the traditional viewpoint where we have revenues on the top, expenses on the bottom, and net income or loss on the bottom. Now, that's not really terribly useful for a not-for-profit such as ourselves, but I'm going to show you the traditional view for those that are operating small businesses out there. So we can see that we collected $350,000 in revenues in various categories, being dues, contributions, some meetings and rent, and a few other things. And then we got some money off the investment pool, and all that totals up to $688,000. Then we spent the money on various things, and salaries is the biggest thing for us. It always has and always will be. We got some contract services, think maintaining the website and databases and that sort of stuff, and a few other things, and some other costs. Now you look at this in your alarm, go, whoa, wait a minute, we lost $300,000. Don't panic. We're going to actually show you more detail that's going to explain that situation on the next slide. So now let's break it out by our various categories, which are now, as I said, the new terminology, net assets with donor restrictions, the restricted fund, the endowment funds and things, and then the stuff we just have general use of. Now we can start to see that, well, in the donor restricted assets, we had a little bit of money, we spent a little bit of money, and we spent a little bit more money than we brought in, but we had money to start with, so that's okay. The endowment fund, this is what stayed in the endowment funds and in the investment pool, so to speak, and this is what came over into the general fund for usage. So now when we look at operations, we say, aha, we brought in $600,000, we spent $971, we got a $300,000 loss. It's terrible, right? No, not really. Hold on, let's go to the next slide. So keep your eye on the column here, this column, what we just have for general operations, and let's break that out. And that's gonna be here. Okay. They were editing my slide last night, and this shouldn't have stayed up that way, but ignore that. So this column is the one we were just looking at. This is the budget, and this is the difference, okay? And we can see that, well, hey, we brought in more dues than expected. That's great. Gordon was shown yesterday, our membership is up, all is well. Contributions, we got some unexpected bequests this year, wonderful. We collected $100,000 more than we had hoped. Meetings, well, the meeting in Flagstaff last year was very successful, so we collected more. The rent, however, the office space on the ground floor, we didn't rent it out for the full year, so that's down a little bit. But here, our general revenues are up, $160,000, that's great. But you've been looking at this going, wait a minute, you know, we're down on the investment. Well, as we discussed in March, as Chris reported on from the minutes, we did not draw out of the endowment fund for several months last year because we had adequate cash in the bank. So therefore, we only took out $250 for operations. We had planned to take out $650,000, so therefore we left $400,000 in the endowment fund. That's actually a positive. So even though it shows a big loss down here, it wasn't intended, a planned loss, hence that word right there saying that we deliberately decided we did not need to take all that money out and left it in place. So expenses, we can see that we spent a little bit more in a couple categories, but really there's this non-cash expense down here called depreciation, which is the biggest difference. And so it's not a use of cash, so we can safely ignore that and come down and say that really we met the budget in most respects and exceeded it in several respects. Now, the other question we always get, so I'm gonna put this in there until people stop telling me to do it, and that is what's going on in the, okay, come on, let's advance. There we go. What's going on in some of these restricted funds, and we always have a lot of interest in the AAVSO net. We brought in $550 of donations. We spent $10,000 something on some equipment and stuff like that. So we spent more than we brought in, but we had $22,000, in the fund, in the bank from prior years. So we're still got money in the bank for purposes of that nature. Here's a few of the other little things, the Maddie and the MIO funds and the endowment fund. Now, as I mentioned, this is only 2 weeks old. The ink is not even dry. We haven't even started talking to the auditors. One of the first things I do when talking to the auditors is we take our investment income and start spreading it between these funds. This doesn't have that in there yet. The endowment fund will get a few $1,000s of income allocated to it, as will some of the others at lesser levels. So just understand that this is, the error bars are slightly higher than you would like to see, but heck, this is only dated 2 weeks old, so we're good. Okay, we must have a question or two out there. Everybody's paying rapt attention. We have a gentleman in the back. We need the microphone back there. Ooh, we're just waking you up. I'll repeat your question.
No, wait.
What is the mean rate of return on your investment?
For those who didn't hear that, what is the mean rate of return on investment? The investment committee, headed by Dick, we've been having lots and lots of meetings. We've got new people on the committee, and these are great questions that we've been discussing a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dick, but the mean rate of return was 4.2%, was that correct?
For 3 years, average over 3 years.
Okay, so we have been discussing with the investment committee what's been going on in the past, what our expenses are, which are about 0.8%, and what we expect to happen in the future. And of course, the future is very tough to predict. A lot of people think that sometime in the near future, we're going to have a recession, and call that the next year or two. Our investment advisors think that it's going to be short and shallow were the actual words that they use, but who can predict these things? We are trying to protect the portfolio against such a thing. One of the goals that we have, which we haven't quite met, is to have 18 months of cash on hand. Why is that? Because if you're in a recession, you don't want to have to be selling stuff to turn a paper loss into a realized loss. So we're not quite there. We would like to extend that out. We're having discussions with the investment advisors as to what we can do to extend that in the future and what we can do to increase the returns. The short answer. Okay, Arnie.
Great, thank you. You are 260-ish thousand below budget this year that you made up with available cash.
Right.
What are you going to do next year?
Well, we have a budget, and so far, I'm going to say for the first month, we haven't drawn out per that budget. One of the big issues was the database software, which was discussed extensively have to protect that data, and with the agreement of the membership, I do believe they authorize an additional expense to hire the proper people to go in and fix all that. So that was gonna be part of an increase. I'm expecting personally that, you know, we may not quite drop the full budgeted amount, but it's gonna be substantial, and we are going, and it's gonna, we created a budget that's that's a break-even budget, but I'm expecting the investment pool is probably gonna go down a little bit next year, particularly if we have a recession. Any other questions? Wow, either I was super clear, or you guys haven't had your coffee yet. Oh, one more than that.
Perhaps Arnie's question was incorporated in your answer. Database management expense, you see it increasing, and if so, how much? And what's the trend going to be in the upcoming years? Is it gonna be double every 2 or 3 years, or are we tapering off?
Well, that's a real hard thing to predict. And still, I might be able to answer this better than I can, but we hired a firm, Clearview, and the contract is for $10,000 a month, and we expect the project is 3 years, is that correct?
So now we have a contract for 6 months,
6 months.
and then we are reviewing it annually.
Okay. So that is partly made up by the fact that we were paying the AAS to maintain some of this stuff for us, so it's not total increase of 10,000 a month, but it is an increase. And we've had to build that into our budget, and, you know, it's gonna be tough. Revenues in the future are gonna be real tough. It's hard to get grants, it's hard to do everything these days. We're competing against every not-for-profit in the world for funding. But we, you know, through the whole process of strategic planning that Gordon's been talking about, we're bringing in people who know how to fundraise, who can advise on this, and all of that. So it's basically, we're trying to meet all these challenges as best we can. Oh, there we go.
I'm new,
It's working.
I'm new here, so excuse me if this is a novice question, but, what's your spending policy in terms of percentages, and do you stay within it? And do you expect to, is it designed to maintain the endowment in perpetuity?
Well, as most people know in the audience, we've been drawing out more than is thought to be sustainable. The council for, I don't know, 10 years before my time, Arnie can maybe answer this question, has been drawn out 5%. Almost every investment advisor in the world is gonna say, that's too much. You know, the conservative approach is 4%, some people can argue for a little bit more, you know, it might be slightly different for not-for-profit, but the general concept is 5% is thought to be way too much, and that's why we actually set a goal in place, the investment committee and the council authorized it for a ramping down that will get to that point, but it'll have to be over a period of time. And that was approved 2 years ago, Dick, is that correct?
That's about right, Tennessee, I forget.
Okay, and so, last year we didn't drive up 5%. Depending upon what baseline we care to use, it might have been closer to 4.2 to 4.5. With the additional expenditure for the Clearview to fix these software problems, it's not gonna be that low next year. It simply can't, you know. We got 2 masters to meet here. But the idea is that we definitely wanna get down to something sustainable, and we're hoping that, you know, the CAP people can actually give us some ideas as to how to get there. But that is the big subject in every council meeting and every investment committee meeting, and that this is first and foremost on everybody's mind, that we want this to last far into the future.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder to me, what is 1% of the endowment that is the difference between 5 and 4? How much dollars?
130, am I right?
30,000?
Yeah.
So a salary type amount.
Yeah, and And I can do that math in my head, that's pretty strange this time in the morning. Okay. Up, in the back.
A two-part question.
Okay.
First part, it's a little hard to see from back here, but it seemed that the operating revenues had gone up somewhat this year, if I read it right.
They did.
And I would like to understand that a little better. And the second part is, what's the policy as far as allocation for the investment fund? Is it 70-30? What do you? I don't know.
The allocation of the investments to the various funds is based upon a percentage of the whole.
I'm sorry. I mean, but in asset class, for what's invested in.
I did not bring up that slide, but and Dick can probably answer this a little better. It was US equities and some foreign equities and some large cap. It's a fairly traditional, mixture compared to what we feel, we've been talking about that maybe we want to change a few of the allocations to get more into some, dividends and things like that. So I don't have that slide up with me, I'm sorry about that. But you wouldn't be shocked by the allocations. Okay, that was the first part. Oh, the revenues, that's right. The revenues were up for two reasons. A little bit is dues, growth in members, great, super, we love that. And we got, in the contribution area, we got two bequests, that, you sure can't budget for that sort of stuff, but when it happens, it's very much appreciated. And the annual meeting last year was very successful, and I'm hoping this year will be very successful also.
Hi, quick question. How do you guys plan for like major systems upgrades and capital budget, either for, the software infrastructure or equipment? How do you plan for that? Do you build a reserve into the budget? What's the approach?
Well, that was planned at the board level. I'm using the bylaw term, assuming that'll be the terminology. The board council level has been discussing that for a couple of years as to what the best approach was and what the funds were gonna be and everything. And then, when the contract was presented, it was always, of course, a little bit different than what was expected, but it was within range. So far we haven't had any other major infrastructure improvement plans like hardware, equipment, computers, stuff like that. Those things are usually fairly small and just, become part of a normal budgetary process. But the big thing has been talked about at committee and council level. Well, that was great. We had some great questions.
Well, let's thank Bob for a very
Give me 30 seconds.
Yes, you have.
And let me just add to that whole discussion on finance, and you're probably tired of me saying this, but coming out of the strategic planning process, we've got to get these members in balance. Okay, we have to have a concrete plan to be sure that the income and the expense match, and that the plan for expense covers a priority program. So we plan to do that. Stella is actively working with various organizations to increase potential grants and donations. CAP has some specific suggestions to us on how to raise additional money. So this is not a zero-sum game. Our goal, our hope is that we can come out of the strategic plan with a better expectation, realistic expectation for increasing funds that come into the organizations, and then put together a plan that matches. So that's kind of the big picture.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to those who are watching us online.
Yep.
So the first item for my report is actually to recognize the individuals whom we lost last year and who were very loyal, very close friends of the AAVSO and of citizen astronomy in general. And I would like to start with George Fortier, who was actually a past president. We lost one of our past presidents this past summer. He was a council member and officer between 69 and 99. He was an AAVSO member for 34 years, and he was a visual observer. So he has more than 4,000 visual and planet observations in our database. Jerry Shirley was a president of the Astronomical League, one of our sister associations, and he actually played a very important role of encouraging younger individuals to be more involved with the Astronomical League's program. Bob Kent was the 30th president of the Astronomical League, and he was a president of the International Gas Sky Association, and he was an advocate of more programs, so he expanded the program of the Astronomical League. Dr. John Canizzo, a very good friend of the AAVSO, a very cherished colleague, he was a very good friend of Janet Mattis, actually. They wrote one of the seminal papers on SSC. He was a researcher at the Astrophysics Science Division at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, and he was very strongly committed to advancing women in sciences, in astronomy, in math, at a time where the field was very male-dominated. Gerard Dyke, he was an AAVSO member for 39 years. He contributed over 160,000 visual variable star observations. So as a person who has contributed 25 variable star observations in the last 3-4 years, 160,000 is quite an achievement. Of course, he got the 150,000 variable star observation award, and he also got the 43rd Merit Award in 2012. And actually, I was fortunate to meet him in person. He used to come to our meetings with his wife very frequently. And Dr. Riccardo Giacconi, he was a Nobel laureate. He was a director of Space Telescope Science Institute. And in principle, he's the father of X-ray astronomy. So the first X-ray satellites were inspired from his work in astrophysics. And actually, the first conference of women in astronomy was held at Space Telescope during his tenure. We also lost Dr. Nancy Grace Drummond. She was the first chief of astronomy in the Office of Space Science at NASA headquarters, and she was the first woman to hold an executive position at NASA. She has a minor planet on her honor, and actually she's one of the 4 women of NASA that is immortalized in the LEGO series. So I have one of these in my office just to remind that, women are actually powerful, although they have not been recognized for years and years. And last but not least, I'd like to recognize this individual whom we lost in 2017. He actually left a really substantial bequest to the AAVSO this past year. So that is actually getting him the Argelander Society. It's as if he knew that we would need the money last year in order to fix our infrastructure. So we miss him dearly. He's one of the NOVA searchers back in the time where all these automated surveys had not even been conceived. He was actually part of the team that was scanning the night sky to identify bright novae for our observers and researchers to work on. So he has 4 different discoveries under his belt. So we're really very grateful for his contribution and leaving his legacy with the AAVSO. So with that, I would like you to join me in a moment of silence. If you don't mind standing up. Thank you. With that, I would like to start by reminding you that this is a safe space. This is our webpage for our policies, and as Christine mentioned, the one that we're highlighting has to do with our event policy and non-discrimination and harassment policy. Pretty much what that translates to is that the AAVSO is a place where everybody should be comfortable expressing their opinion in a respectable way, working in astronomy, contributing to astronomy. This is a safe space for all. So this is pretty much what these policies are saying. So with that, I would like to start by actually pointing out the obvious. It takes, there you go. It takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of work to make this happen. There's lots of things that happen behind the scenes that they're not obvious, but they're really necessary and critical for us to be able to serve you, our community. And the individuals who are behind the scenes are actually working quietly but really hard in order to make this happen. So with that, I would like to introduce our staff at headquarters. We have a small group that does pretty much everything, and I would like to recognize their work. Bert Pablo, where's Bert? Stand up. I want everybody to stand up. All my staff stand up, please. Bert Pablo is leading the science team. He's in charge of our infrastructure updates. When we're working with a new company, bringing new people, just making sure that our databases, our software, our IT, anything and everything really works. And he's actually also trying to do some research on the side, which is interesting. Elizabeth Morgan, you know Elizabeth, she's been with us for 35, 40 years now. And she is working on alerts, campaigns. She's the one who you're going to talk to. If you pick up the phone, you have a question about your observations. If you have a question about the light curve, she's been working on the meeting as well. And actually on a special project this year, digitizing our database. Database is the existing cards. Just imagine the patient of a person that looks through. I'm not even going to. Sarah Beck, who is a technical assistant, data quality control. The reason why professional astronomers come to us because they trust the database. They trust our data. They trust that if every data set that comes in our database is being checked. I'm not saying that, and actually we do find discrepant data, and that can happen from the most experienced observers, not necessarily from novices. Simply because those of you who work with automated equipment know that there's no such thing as a perfect piece of software, there's no such thing as a perfect filter wheel. Things happen. As simple as that. So once we're checking the data, we're giving feedback to observers and actually making sure we understand whether the discrepancy is real, whether we just discovered a new phenomenon in the stellar light curve, and actually move forward this way. And also Sarah is working on small projects that have to do with our infrastructure, our software, et cetera, et cetera. She's working a lot with volunteers, and she's heading that data quality control team. Sebastian Otero, oh my goodness, VSX, and we're very happy to have him here. Sebastian is working on VSX with one other volunteer and a couple of others who just joined the team. We're talking about the backbone of the ADSO, a super catalog. I'm going to mention a couple of things as well, and he's going to tell us more about his work. But we're talking about the tremendous effort to keep this catalog as updated as possible and as pure as possible in terms of no duplicate entries, no constant stars in there, providing a very vital resource for every researcher on the planet. Every time I go to a conference, professional conference, that present VSX to those who don't know it, their eyes kind of open. As in, you have that, and can I access it? Kathy Spire, oh my goodness, what would we do without operations? Kathy is actually running the place, really. If it wasn't for Kathy, the rest of us would be dying up there. We're talking about everything you don't see, but it's really vital for a non-profit life, for a non-profit life. So we're talking about finances, we're talking about maintenance, we're talking about awards and even certificates, membership, meetings, and I'm pretty sure I forget the most of things that Kathy's doing. Owen joined us about 4 years ago, and pretty much it's amazing that he has evolved in his position. He started as an admin assistant, but right now he's doing that and everything else. So Owen's actually keeping us up and running, and actually he's running the meeting here with all the technology, making sure that all our computers are working, and making sure that even we're fed occasionally. You know, sometimes you forget. Lindsay Ward, she joined us quite recently. She joined us as an office assistant, but right now she's moving to communications. You've seen our presence in social media. We have pumped up our press release output. This is actually really important for individuals to appreciate what it is that we're doing. It's exactly what Gordon was saying yesterday. We can't exactly say, hey, we're here. Go find us. We live in a world that has so much noise that we can't hide in it. So Lindsay's going to be helping with all our marketing efforts moving forward. So with that, please, and Mike Saladiga, how can I forget Mike? Mike is our journal manager. He has retired. We're trying not to have him retire completely. We're trying not to make the person retire, really. So Michael is helping with the manuscripts, traffic, with all kinds of things that have to do with the journal. Now we have a new editor-in-chief with a transition between two editors, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, let's thank them. Just a round of applause for. For 120 hours a week, and they still talk to me. So thank you guys. Thank you. With that, we have also an army of volunteers. What would you do without the volunteers? What would you do without you? And actually, I was very ambitious to kind of try to put every single name in a slide. I couldn't do it. I have a poster actually with all the names outside. But what I would like to tell you is pretty much how we are interacting with the volunteers, what kind of work we're doing with them. So all of you are observers who are actually submitting your data to our database. We're sort of twisting your arm just a little bit, but you're doing that out of the goodness of your heart and because you're passionate and you love astronomy and you want to contribute to science. Our council committee, all those individuals who actually are thinking and they're spending, actually they're staying awake at night to actually figure out how we're going to run this organization the best way we can. And not only that, how are we going to be sustainable? How are we going to be this great organization in 50 years from now, in 100 years from now? What do our members want? What does our community want? People who are working on special projects with us, and special projects can be from software to databases to even exploring different things. There's lots of trial and error in order to improve our products and improve our software that you don't see. Some things work, some things don't. That's how science goes. The VSX team, oh my gosh, Sebastian. It's actually Sebastian, Patrick Wills, yes, Klaus and Patrick, yes. So 4 people to maintain a database of more than 1 million objects. I'll leave it there. Observing sections, we witnessed a very interesting discussion groups yesterday. It was so refreshing to actually talk about subjects that actually, and objects that make us passionate and learn from each other. So we're trying to actually focus more on observing sections, but we need to recognize that the observing section leaders are volunteers. Charts and sequences. Every time we're looking for comparison stars, every time we're looking for a sequence, every time we have an alert, we are actually reaching out to those volunteers who are actually working on time to provide the appropriate comparison stars. Data validation, the mentoring program, oh my goodness. You know, we have, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but it's fantastic to see people learning from others. Novices reaching out to more experienced observers. And for me, as a novice visual observer a couple of years ago, I had 2 mentors, and Sebastian was one of them. Just trying to understand how to do visual observing with my binoculars and without a go-to system. It's really hard to find those stars, isn't it? Choice course instructors is our volunteers. Software development and support. We do a lot at headquarters, but we work a lot with volunteers. AVSONet itself is run by volunteers. Special archival projects, we still have people who are digitizing data from old manuscripts to make sure that that data is in our database. And translators of manuals. I'm pretty sure I forgot lots of other ways that we're working with individuals, but I would like to recognize all the different ways that we are engaging the community to the AVS, or to the heart of the AVS of what we're doing. So for that, this is an outline of my report. It will have 2 parts. We're going to talk about some numbers here and some highlights of the year, some projects, new projects that we're having, meetings. I'm going to have a discussion about the AVS or the era of large surveys, some things that perhaps you want to know, we need to discuss. We're going to go to our works, election results, and then we're going to break for coffee. And we are going to continue with our strategic planning as part 2. So let's get started with this. You saw this yesterday. Our membership is increasing. It's exactly what Gordon showed you. So right now we have more than 1,200 members, which is fantastic. I'm going to focus here on our observers because I find it's very interesting that there are individuals who come from all over the world primarily from the US, but also Spain, the UK, Canada, Germany, Italy, France, Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Ukraine, and there's 23% here that represents about 53 different countries. So a quarter of the world, or a little bit more than that, submits data in our database, which I find really cool. How are these observers observing? So we've been tracking pretty much the mode of observation. In 2019, we have a little bit of decrease of visual observers overall. It seems that DSLR is more or less flat. CCD is more or less flat. We had 105 solar observers. And this is actually amazing because the sun did nothing. And it's amazing, right? We're doing dedication. And we had pretty much the same number of observers or other. In the other is where you see the decline here. So more or less our observers and the nodes they're observing is more or less the same. Again, a reminder that there are individuals who have more than one way of observing, so this is not a one-on-one representation. Our database is growing. As of 3 days ago, we had more than 39 million data points in our database. We're going to cross, I'm pretty sure, 40 million before the end of the month, because this number has increased. And the interesting thing is how our data is being used. The reason why this is a database, not an archive, is because our data is being actively used by individuals, by researchers all over the world. So we have a 15% from the US, and then Ukraine, Sweden, Japan, India, UK, Chile, Taiwan, Iran, Brazil. And this other, which is almost half, represents 50 countries in the world. So we're talking about researchers from all over the world downloading and using our data for whatever reason. So your science, your work is actually being used here. And not only here, we are also tracking the manuscripts that are being submitted and published in refereed and non-refereed journal through actually NASA's ABS system. Okay, so this is the official NASA astrophysics database that is actually putting all the refereed and non-refereed manuscripts. This is until the end of September of 2019, so this is not the full year. Everything else is full calendar year. So the blue bar is all the papers together. The red is the refereed, and the gray is the non-refereed. So we see your data in all kinds of manuscripts all over the world, which I think is really cool. Speaking of journals, speaking of manuscripts, this past year we said goodbye to John Percy, who finally, after saying for 5 years that he wants to retire, did retire. We let him retire. So people sort of do retire from the ABS, yes. We presented him with an award, thanking him for his contribution. And actually, I would like to highlight his paper, the last editorial that he put on our journal, where he actually talks about citizen science. And I would like to urge you all to actually take a look at it. It has a lot of wisdom in there, has a lot of information, and a lot of information that is relevant to us. With that, I would like to introduce our new editor-in-chief, Nancy Morrison, Professor Morrison. Do you mind joining me? And I would like to use actually John Percy's words, saying that Morrison's long and successful career as a professor, observatory director, planetarium director suggests that she's another ABS of kindred spirit who will bring new ideas to the ABS and the organization as a whole. So, seal of approval. Nancy, welcome to the ABS. So, would you like to say a couple of words? Can I give you a hand?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been an ABSO member for a long time. As an observatory director, I was using ABSO alerts to tell me when something was interesting and happening. So I thought, using those, I should be a member, and I've been a member ever since. So, sorry, which button do I press? Okay, that's easier. Yeah. First, I want to introduce the journal, even though it really may need no introduction to this audience. But I'm a believer in defining my terms. when I start. So here we go. I want to emphasize that the journal is for AAVSO members, free to publish, and is almost unique in that respect in being both free and very largely open to the community. We have a wide range of content, not only variable star research results of various kinds, photometry and spectroscopy, and data mining as well. Solar astronomy, after all, the sun is a star, and it does vary. We offer statistical analysis and modeling. I think occasionally you see a seemingly impenetrable paper full of mathematics, but believe me, it's good stuff. Observing techniques, software, and instrumentation. What's new at your observatory that you would like the public to know about? Education and public outreach relevant to variable stars, and history relevant to variable stars. And finally, just hidden at the bottom of the screen, the occasional review article. So if you feel that your activities are relevant to any of those and you would like the wider community to know about them, please consider submitting an article. And if you need more information about that process, feel free to talk to me. What would I like to do? The journal is great, but there's nothing on this planet that can't be improved, and I'd like to venture into that territory. I certainly would like to have more authors, and I've just spoken to you in that regard, both amateur and professional, and I'd like to broaden the pool of referees. I'd also like to broaden the demographics of our authors, more students, more young people, both amateurs and professionals. I'd like to look for innovative ways to make the data that have been published in the AAVSO journal accessible to the public, either by download or by other means. I'd like to make the journal more interactive so that possibly you could click on a graph and see the data, maybe able to zoom in on the data. Those are all possibilities that are being explored by other journals. I don't want to go into too much detail because I need to work with the staff and see what's feasible given our resources, and we've just heard about the limitations on our resources. I want to commit to a collegial, fair, educational experience for both author and referee. There is an ethics statement for authors on the journal webpage, so that as an author you have standards, both professional in terms of data content, in terms of editorial content, and also personal to uphold. Another set of standards of similar quality should be applied to referees, and I would most journals have such a code of conduct, and I will be working to develop one for us. Something does go on behind the scenes, I understand, which is that if a referee does make, shall we say, overly personal or not terribly professional comments to an author, that those are edited out before the author sees them. But the referees should be informed of that as well. Basically, the code of conduct would consist of no author bashing, please. And finally, I'd like to get more review articles because I think those have major educational value. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful. And with that, I would like to share with you a council decision. I've been going to conferences very frequently to go to our professional community, and one of the things they're saying is that, well, but I can't reach your manuscript right away. There is a proprietary period of a year before I reach to it, and my answer is, why aren't you a member, stuff like that. But at the same time, we do understand that we do need to make your research or the published research immediately available. In the world of open access, we are opening the journal. So as of the next issue, because we're closing this pretty much in December, the manuscripts that are being published on the webpage, on the journal webpage, will be available to everybody all over the world right away. So I'm hoping that this is going, or we're hoping that this is going to increase the visibility of the journal, increase the citations of the journal manuscripts, and also attract more authors because pretty much their science will be available there to share with their colleagues. So we're doing that. So here's what I'm not gonna talk about today. I'm not gonna tell you all the work that we've been doing with cybersecurity. This is something that we completed in February. We learned a lot of our infrastructure and some little holes or backdoors that we hadn't realized exist there. We also onboarded a new IT company, lots of work there to make sure that they understand what we have as an infrastructure. And again, we're talking about a really complicated set of databases, of programs, of how they talk to each other and all kinds of stuff like that. We are at the point of completing this Drupal 7 to 8, at least the back end of it, migration. But it's been a fantastic collaboration. Bert has been leading actually this effort from headquarters side with a team of volunteers. Digitizing our membership directory, we're hoping to retire paper and put it in an archive to protect it, if not anything else. There's lots of really valuable data there, but it's not in our database. Observing sections, working to revitalize it, identifying more individuals who will be involved in the leadership team, get a little bit more updates on the web pages, et cetera, et cetera. Data quality control, observer feedback, this is ongoing. It's happening all the time. It's something we're not compromising on. Alerts campaigns, oh my goodness, targets of interest to the professional and non-professional community, to anyone for that matter, who really need data. And they come to us to ask you, actually, for more data for their projects. The journal, content enhancements, new editor-in-chief onboarding. We've had many very interesting discussions, both with John and with Nancy, in order to see how we're going to move forward the journal as a stronger avenue of communicating science amongst our members, observers, community principle. Meetings. I'm hoping that you are all having fun, but it takes a village. So it's a lot of effort to make sure that this, we're offering you the best services at the meetings, and they are pleasure, they're a place where you're having fun while you're getting together. Put together the schedule, put together the hotels, and all kinds of things that happen behind the scenes. Membership services, finance, administration, communication, building maintenance, anything and everything that is actually necessary, it's vital for us to exist. But this is something that we don't get to appreciate very frequently, and that's why I'm actually mentioning it here. What I am going to talk about, and actually the strategic planning. How can I forget that? We've been really working very hard this past year behind the scenes to understand our membership, all the things that Gordon mentioned today, and from there to figure out how we're going to move forward in a strong, sustainable way, and how we're going to make the AVSO more relevant and necessary for the community we're serving. So I would like to start by pointing out VSX reached another milestone. Right now we have more than 1 million objects cataloged in that database. When I started at the AVSO 5 years ago, it was 300,000, I think. So we're talking about more than 4 times more objects. And actually most of them were imported this past year. These are some of the catalogs that were imported by Sebastian and his team, from WISE new catalogs to Corot data to K2 stars, new variables from Assassin, Ogle. We're working very closely with the Ogle team, and this is not even comprehensive. This is just an example of how our database is growing. And of course, those data need to be checked before imported. It's not that we just take a list and we just put it in there. Check for duplicates, check for quality. Most of this data come out of automated pipelines, make sure that they're correct, et cetera, et cetera. We're also growing a mentor program. So Chris mentioned that we had 22 mentors. And actually right now we have 39 individuals from, from 14 different countries being mentors. And I would like to urge you to actually join our mentoring program. It's extremely valuable. We get requests almost every month, or actually almost every week. Every time we talk to Sebastian, he tells us about new mentor requests that come in. Individuals really appreciate learning from other observers, so please consider joining this program. Also, we offered a suite of really amazing choice courses. One of the new ones actually this year has been a solar choice course. Yes, the big complaint was that the sun was not doing anything. There was nothing you could do about that. But actually we have and listed a couple of other volunteers to teach the exoplanet observing course, to actually help tenants with that. And of course, we offer the CCD photometry part 1 and 2, variable star classification, light curves, how to use V-star, photometry using VPHOT, and the one that is coming up is actually another exoplanet in November. Every time we build anything at the AES or improve anything, we try to track it. We try to see how it's progressing, what its progress is, what its usage is. It's not that we're releasing a tool, we're releasing a set of software and we just let it go. We try to see whether it really serves the community, it really serves its intended goal. So we are tracking the membership tool that we have, we're tracking the target tool, we also track the Leica generator. We produced a new tool not too long ago, and it seems that it's doing extremely well. And the interesting thing is that these two trends seem to be very similar. People who are still using LCG1 and people who are still using LCG2. To the point where I dare say there's a lot of overlap of those individuals. We're trying both ways. Here's an announcement for you. We are officially now launching a spectroscopy database. And I understand this is something that our community was craving and wanted for a long, long time. This is something that we introduced last February here at the Hotel El Encanto in a small spectroscopy workshop. So now, officially, it's available for everyone. And the main idea for AV-Spec is to actually provide spectra alongside light curves. This is the RLIRA. This is the prototype of pulsators of the whole category. And these are some spectra that were acquired by Christian Buell. And actually you can see even differences in, so this is the little line here is the rest wavelength. And you can see lines going back and forth as the star pulsates. So there are many, many different light curve behaviors that can be identified alongside spectra and the other way around. And this is actually maximizing not only the contribution of our observers in science, but also the science itself that comes out. So if you have a spectrograph, you want to play with spectra, we have now a database for you. And not only that, we have the observing section has manuals for anything you do or you don't want to know about spectroscopy. We have targets, suggested targets for individuals to observe with all types of resolutions, all types of spectrographs, both from the north and the southern hemisphere. We have all kinds of observer resources. There are some really cool videos there of how to use different tools and different pieces of software. And of course, we do have a database. And actually, when it comes to the database, can be accessed from here. While we're testing it, right now it has more than 550 spectra in it of all types of objects, from about 20 observers from all over the world. And the emphasis here is quality. Every single spectrum that comes in this database is being checked for quality. We're talking about the wavelength scale, we're talking about signal to noise, we're talking about even the type of star, we're talking about the instrumental correction, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to actually produce, have a database of high quality for science, as simple as that. So with that, we also started an ambassador program last year. And this is pretty much a program that's targeting younger individuals. By younger, I mean younger than me. And no, I'm not gonna tell you how old I am. So we assembled a group of really very talented young minds who are already leaders in their groups, in their fields. And it's actually a great pleasure to introduce them to you here. Molly Watkening is an astrophotographer. She just started graduate school at Berkeley right now. Melanie Crosson. Melanie, stand up, please. Please. So you saw Melanie yesterday, and you will see her again today. Yes? She's going to give her talk today. She's working on RLIRA. She's one of the new leaders of our RLIRA short period pulsator session. Alexander Belzi-Sweeney, is Alex here? Alexander.
He stepped out.
He stepped out. Now? All right, so Alexander is a solar astronomer. I had the opportunity, the great luck to meet him through Patty Grady Voices program. He took the exoplanet observing course. He just finished a very cool R&D program at the National Solar Observatory. So he can tell you all about the sun. And Anna Veronica Parra. I met Anna as well through Pat and Grady. And actually, she is a biologist and an aspiring graduate student in astronomy, so she's taking physics courses in order to go to graduate school, and she's very interested in exoplanets. She has exoplanets, astrobiology, what makes a planet habitable, things like that. So she's very into outreach. So with that, I would like to actually invite you all, if you know individuals who are interested in all kinds of activities, outreach activities, research activities, but they would like to actually join our ambassador program, please encourage them to do so. It's not just observing variable stars. Not everybody can do it, especially if you don't have the means, if you live in a big city. But you can actually contribute by communicating data, the value of variable stars. You can contribute by writing a blog. Now everybody's online. You can contribute by being in social media and communicating the value of observations from small telescopes. You can contribute by taking your own data, of course, but analyzing data as well as your project, as a poster, giving talks to your own local astronomy club. So please encourage them to come and join us. Just an email, avso@avso.org, and we will actually communicate with whomever is interested and figure out what kind of activities they're in and actually disseminate their work to the community. For young individuals, this looks very good on their resume. And leave it there. So we also had an annual campaign around this particular theme, exactly because we wanted to encourage more younger individuals to come to the AVSO, cultivate and grow the future of the AVSO. This was the theme for this particular campaign. So we wanted to collect money in order to curate our databases, to maintain the software that we have, maintain alert campaigns. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of individuals to do that. Educational resources, the journal, meetings, workshops. This was our campaign about this past year. We were very, very fortunate to have matching funds from 2 individuals, 2 donors, who actually pledged to double the amount of money that anyone gives, up to the $50,000 level. So we managed to get about $37,000, but those 2 individuals just gave us the $50,000 regardless. So the total amount that we gathered was $87K. A little bit less than our target, but we're really very grateful by the community's generosity. And by the way, we realized one thing, we didn't have any monthly giving program up to that point. And there are individuals who feel much more comfortable giving a little bit every month instead of just one sum at the very end. That helps with budgeting. So if you're interested, please join our monthly giving program. The $10 a month would actually help the big picture at the AVSO. Also, my staff has a challenge for membership. Last year, the challenge was to actually renew our membership by 100% by the end of January. We reached about 90% of our goal last year, 2019. So we had 90% of our membership renewals by the end of 2018. So the question is, can we do the same thing this year? And actually, can we go 100% this year? So please remember to renew your membership. You can do it online, you can do it by talking to individuals, you can do it on the phone. There are many, many different ways. Let's see, with that, I'm gonna go to, actually, yes, a reminder. AVSO membership, it's a great holiday gift. Holidays are coming. So you want to encourage your friends, family, nieces, nephews, and their kids to get started in astronomy, just give them a membership. I think that it's a really cool thing. Actually, I'm going to give a membership to my older nephew, an AVSO membership. He's 9. Can he become a member at 9? Okay, maybe I will stumble. Maybe if I add older ages, they could be over 18. So, but this is actually a really good idea for those who are passionate about astronomy, but they don't know about the AVSO, and they want to belong to a group that is also passionate about astronomy and citizen science. Moving on to our meetings, as Gordon said, we are in communication right now with another organization for a spring meeting, so we're not going to make an announcement yet about that, but please mark your calendars for 2020, November 2020. This is gonna happen, in Somerville, Massachusetts, on the Orange Line, it's the Metro Line, Massachusetts. And actually, it's going to start with a spectroscopy workshop. So the spectroscopy workshop, November 4 and 5, the annual meeting, November 6 to 7. So mark your calendars for that. With that, I would like to transition to something different. There is a very active discussions happening anywhere and everywhere I go and I meet our observers. Are we still relevant in the era of large surveys? Are they running us out of business? And we had this discussion before here, and actually yesterday, most of the talks that you heard from professional astronomers, those who are really getting paid to do astronomy, is something like, we really need you. We really do. But let's take a look at surveys. So, traditionally, when you were an observer, actually when I was an observer, a graduate student observer, you just take your observing program, you go to the telescope and take your data, you analyze your data, and you get your results, right? Now with those surveys, things have become a little bit more complicated. So you have a survey that gets a whole bunch of stuff. You have a survey telescope that gets a whole bunch of stuff. And then you put it in a database. And the researcher goes to that database and looks to see whether there's something interesting in there for them. And either they use the database outcome to publish a manuscript, usually a statistical manuscript. We found 5,000 lyras, 3,000 of them show blah phenomenon. Or they're looking for a telescope or some kind of resource to take additional data in order to understand what the mechanisms are looking at. And then they publish the results. Most of our colleagues are doing this because the objects that we are studying are so dynamic, they're so variable, that you just can't live just with the survey data. And actually, even those surveys are not exactly solving everybody's problems. Kepler K2, oh my goodness, everybody loved Kepler when it came out. It was staying the same part of the sky for 4 years, non-stop. How can you do anything better? Well, the